Hey everyone, welcome back to another hardware news recap. We have one bit of software news this week, which is Notepad, part of Windows, is getting the first update it's gotten in a very long time. So Notepad's getting an update. Intel also debunked rumors regarding the death of its Extreme Edition branding. I guess the rumors of its demise were greatly exaggerated. A German court forbids the soon marketing surrounding pre-orders and things like that, especially affecting Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. That'll be interesting. Threadripper TDP more or less confirmed at this point, and some follow-up news on things we spoke about in the last two hardware news episodes. Before that, this video is brought to you by NZXT's new H500 case, which we recently found to have an impressively effective cooling setup that is entirely negative pressure when stock. The H500 is the successor of the S340 and S340 Elite, offering high build quality that's all steel and glass, and cable management features that are also top class for this $70 compact mid-tower case. The H500 is a part of NZXT's new H-series lineup, which also features options for mini ITX, micro ATX, and full ATX builds. Learn more at the link in the description below. Just quickly, as noted in some of the other videos, we just restocked these, by the way. The teal version of our teardown shirt's been very popular. If you've wanted it, it's back in stock in a lot of sizes. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up one of these shirts that I'm wearing today if you like it. So first, main news item, Intel debunking rumors regarding the Extreme Edition branding demise. This comes after a former Intel employee, Francois Piednol, excuse my pronunciation, casually, I suppose you could say, excuse my French, casually tweeted, quote, "The hashtag Extreme Edition brand is about to get killed. What a big mistake." It's very melodramatic. So that was a few days ago. There was no further information on it at all. There was no explanation, and it got posted on a couple of websites online. PC Gamer reached out to Intel, and Intel responded that, quote, "There is no change to the branding of the Intel Core Extreme Edition processor and Intel Core X Series processor family." So that's more or less the entirety of that news item. Extreme Edition apparently isn't going anywhere. We'll see if that remains true, though. A German court, this is the next one. So a German court forbids the soon TM marketing that we've seen all over the place. This court ruled that it is illegal to sell pre-orders without specifying certain parameters, like delivery dates. The case originates from an advertisement soliciting pre-orders for the Samsung Galaxy S6 back in August of 2016, and this used the phrase "bald verfügbar," which is coming soon. This applies to both physical goods and software licenses like video games. That's where it gets interesting for this one. So if Valve ever mentions Half-Life 3 again, they'll be in big trouble. The ruling upholds an earlier judgment and will become final after the appeals period expires. So going forward, this is not just a ban on pre-orders or anything like that. This is specifically talking about instances like that of the Samsung Galaxy S6, where you could buy into the phone and then who knows when it'll show up. So it's not just announcing the availability of the product with the pre-order and giving a launch date. It's also when are you going to get it, because as we all know, you can order it early. If it's something like a phone, there's still no guarantee that you actually get one when it comes out, because there might be a big wait list. So you could be waiting a long time. So this should more or less shut that down. Good for the consumer overall, not great for companies, but the consumer is the one that needs the protection here. So interesting ruling from Germany. We'll see how it goes and how it plays out in the appeals period. Threadripper TDP more or less confirmed at this point. This has been confirmed a few times now, but just to go over it one more time, AMD's Threadripper 2 lineup is due out in August. Probably the second or third week of August from everything we've seen. And this is officially stated by AMD. It's known to be August, not a rumor. So there's a, again, likely launch window around the 13th from what rumors are saying. That's not official. And we already had official information bouncing back and forth that suggested a 250 watt TDP for the upcoming Threadripper 2 processors. This is a pretty significant uplift and means that with overclocking specifically, there could be concerns for existing X399 motherboards with the VRM and VRM cooling solutions that are in place today. So 250 watt TDP for some of the upcoming Threadripper 2 CPUs, and including a 24 core and a 32 core with the higher TDP assigned obviously to the 32 core. There's a new Gigabyte X399 Extreme motherboard listing as well that supports this claim of the TDP, and this further supports Buildzoid's previous concerns in one of his videos about existing X399 motherboard VRM support of Threadripper 2 power requirements. And to which, by the way, AMD_James on Reddit replied saying, quote, "Maybe you should wait till you get your hands on the product before spending time drawing conclusions." A bit salty there, but turns out Billzoid was right. So if you're planning on overclocking Threadripper, despite the unnecessarily snarky response from AMD, it appears that there is cause for consideration here on existing X399 boards. That's why new ones are coming out, like the MSI X399 Creation that we saw at Computex, which we should have footage of in a video on the channel if you're interested in it. Which, by the way, that's one of the most beefed out boards we've seen for this platform so far. Actually, it's the most that we've seen for the platform so far. So for overclocking purposes, you're going to want to look into new X399 boards. That's getting really old to say, with stronger VRMs for big overclocks. Stock is a different story. Naturally, you don't need as much for stock, but that's the nature of running something in stock. Speaking of the X399 Extreme Board, viewers of our content will be happy to hear that Gigabyte has specifically marked the heatsink as having fins, as in on the slide that was leaked, there was an arrow pointed to it that said fins. So this is something manufacturers have been rediscovering lately. Gigabyte, will give them credit, was one of the first to really put a proper heatsink on an X470 AM4 motherboard. And it looks like they're trying to carry that over to X399, and is also something that we showed at Computex. If you want to see their X399 board, we did have a preview there for you. It's looking to use a 10+3 VRM. We're not sure on what power stages are actually used, so I know there's some discussion online, but we're going to wait and get some final official information on that before we go further with it. Next news item, SK, Hynix, and Samsung apparently have suspicions that some of their intellectual property and patents are being stolen by China-based DRAM companies, following up on two stories we had in the last couple of weeks. The Korea Times reports that Chinese memory chip manufacturers are, quote, attempting to infringe on Samsung and SK patents, according to an official who remained unnamed for the article. No specific company is accused, and Samsung and SK have both declined the Korea Times request for comment. So we've got a limit to what we can really talk about here. This still adds to the pile of patent infringement drama that we've been reporting on the last couple of weeks, which recently resulted in the temporary bans of a few Micron products in China. Chinese companies are trying hard to break into the semiconductor market, but it's hard to feel sorry for the massive corporations when they're constantly under investigation for price fixing at the same time. So yeah, that's still going on for Hynix, Samsung, and Micron, while there are these patent and IP theft concerns as well. And if you don't know, China, as in the government of China, is actively looking into creating its own state-owned memory manufacturers as well, which would introduce competition to the market for the only 3 memory manufacturers that exist currently, but it would be different in that it would be state-owned, or at least partially state-owned, from what the reports online have indicated anyway. So interesting story to follow. We don't have a lot more than that right now. Next one, this is something that we saw published on Tom's Hardware, so credit to them for this story. But Tom's is getting brave and venturing into things that are just kind of loosely related to both politics and hardware. We try to stay out of politics, and we do successfully. But when it impacts the space, that's when we'll talk about whatever's going on. I am going to present this neutrally and just talk about what I read on the Tom story. So bear with me here. So this is the regarding the so-called trade war that's been discussed lately. And Tom says that the tariffs imposed on Chinese goods about a week ago or so could potentially impact the price of PC components and pre-built systems. This impact may not be direct, but there are concerns about supply chain disruptions to products that use Chinese parts. It's unlikely that retailers will swallow the higher costs, but will likely pass them on to consumers instead. The trade war goes both ways here, so this is bad news for both American companies importing from China and Chinese companies trying to expand in the US, like Alibaba, who are actually facing issues now with investment and growth in US for Alibaba and AliExpress. So that's all we're going to say on that one. But something to pay attention to, because it does exit like direct hardware news, but it's very related to the industry. We've talked about price a lot lately regarding things like price fixing, and this is potentially impacting prices as well. So we'll keep an eye on it for you. Next one up, this is a fun news item. If you are like many of us in the enthusiast space, Notepad is something of a sacred program. It's meant to be as untouched and unfilled with bloat as possible. You just use it to copy and paste things into strip formatting, for example, or take easy notes, or do some simple Python scripting, something like that. So Microsoft, the creators of the smash hit Paint 3D, which we can show you some footage of if you haven't seen it, are now updating Notepad for the first time in many, many years. And this concerned us when we first saw the headlines, because I was worried about Notepad 3D being the next thing. So it sounds like they deserve some cautious optimism this time. This time, Microsoft is updating Notepad and notes that the improvements that will be rolled into the Windows 10 Redstone 5 update include, quote, support for Unix and Macintosh line endings, wraparound find replace toggling, so Control F can search the whole document rather than just above or below the cursor, text zooming, ability to see the real line and column numbers even when word wrap is enabled, and improved performance when opening large files, plus some other minor features and bug fixes. So all these features make Notepad better at doing things that people actually want to use Notepad for, rather than cluttering the UI with junk and unnecessary features, which is a good and rare kind of update these days. Next up, Samsung's 5th generation VNAND has entered mass production, starting with the 256 gigabit TLC die. The new chips are 96 layers, up from 64, and the height of each layer has been reduced 20%. They're making use of the toggle DDR4 2.0 interface to reach data transfer speeds of 1.4 gigabits per second, a 40% increase over the 64-layer VNAND speed of 800 megabits per second. Operating voltage has been lowered to 1.2 volts from 1.8, and Samsung claims, of course, that energy consumption is therefore comparable to that of a 64-layer chip. Write latency is down to 500 microseconds, and read latency is down to 50. Expect to see the 256 gigabit die in mobile devices and SSDs soon, TM, but don't tell anyone in Germany about that, because it's not allowed anymore. Hardware sales are the last thing here. ASRock and their Phantom Gaming RX 580 will be shipping with free B350 motherboards. So ASRock, new to the GPU market, if you're not aware, and their Phantom Gaming series is actually their first step to try and make an AIB version of a card. And they are shipping it with a free B350 board, also by ASRock, for $300 total, which is actually not a bad deal. Now, whether or not the board's any good kind of depends, because they keep changing this deal, so it might be different by the time this video goes live, but they're changing it every day. $300 is really not too bad, considering a 580 is tough to get for MSRP anyway. And then also GTX 1080 Founders Editions and 1080 Ti FEs have been cheaper lately. EVGA's B-Stock site has had a few listed, though it is B-Stock, so it's probably refurbished. But they've been $400 to $600, which we haven't seen in a very long time. So that's good. Hopefully it keeps going that way. Of course, there are rumors of new GPUs. We don't know when they are going to be or what specifically is launching at this time. So if you're buying, it's basically a matter of you need something anyway and you can't wait, which is fine because we don't know exactly what's coming out or if it'll even be available at launch. Stock has always been questionable over the past year and a half now. So we'll see. We'll see how all that goes. That's it for this news roundup. I am going to be in Canada for Linus's LTX, his expo. Should be a lot of fun. By the time this video goes up, it might be happening already. It's on Saturday, July 14th, I think. So we've got a bunch of Ask GNs we filmed. We filmed 2 8086K videos. We filmed those 6 videos in one day we just did. And we'll be back to in the lab testing shortly. I'll probably film something with Jay or Linus or Luke while I'm out there. And make sure you subscribe to catch those videos if any of those names are appealing to you. Otherwise, store.gamersnexus.net to pick up the aforementioned shirt. You can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to join our Discord and help us out directly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.